So guys, we've got a little bet going. We're betting that at some point in the last few days, you've had a very specific thought, something to do with this insane transfer window our club is having. You ready for it? We're almost certain that at one point you sat there thinking, how on earth are we going to fit both Hugo Ekitike and Alexander Isak on the pitch at the same time? Ever since the news about Isak dropped, and especially after he was left out of Newcastle's pre-season tour squad, we haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Add to that the fact that we've just wrapped up the Ekitike deal, and you can see why this question keeps popping up. On paper, it doesn't really make sense. Both players have pretty similar profiles and strengths, but here's the thing. When someone like Isak shows a genuine interest in joining your club, you don't just walk away from that. Players like him don't come around often, and you just know that Edwards and the rest of the team are cooking something up behind the scenes. Still, the big question remains, how do we actually play both of them together? Well, before we get into that, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, because we're about to break it all down for you. Let's start by looking at how the whole team might line up. Why the full team and not just the two up top? Because talking about just the strikers doesn't really tell the full story. To make it all work, you need to think about balance across the entire pitch. The attack, the midfield, the shape, all of it. So yeah, there's a chance you might not like every name we mention, and just a heads up, the formations you'll see on screen are based on how we play when we've got the ball. That means they'll look a bit different from the usual 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 you see before kickoff or on the lineup graphics. Alright, let's kick things off with an idea that Newcastle, who we've completely outplayed this window, probably had in mind themselves. Bring back the classic 4-4-2, two proper number 9s up top. Old school but with a modern twist. Now for this setup to actually work, we'd need to play a bit more direct. That means going long more often than not, and looking to bypass the midfield when needed. In this system, a lot will depend on Van Dijk and Konaté's passing range. They're both more than capable of pinging balls across the pitch, but to get the best out of them, we need to give them time on the ball. One way to make that happen is by having someone like McAllister or even Szoboszlai drop into the defensive midfield role. Their job would be to occupy at least one of the opposition's forwards, slowing down the press and giving our centre-backs a bit more breathing room to pick their passes. On the left, we've got Florian Wirtz starting either as a wide midfielder. He can drop into midfield too when needed, helping us keep things tight in the middle. That way we can hold our shape and even create a numerical advantage when the opportunity opens up to play it through the lines. So now the big question, how do Ekitike and Isak actually fit into this? Well, like we said, it starts with Van Dijk and Konaté spraying those long passes. Think about those classic Virgil switches out to Salah, or Konaté threading a ball through the lines. Now picture those same passes being aimed at Ekitike. He's the kind of player who thrives on space. If Wirtz pulls out wide or drops deep, that space behind the fullback or in the middle suddenly opens up. And Hugo is the perfect guy to receive there. Let's say Van Dijk spots that pocket and plays it long to Ekitike. He's not just good at getting in behind, he's also got the awareness to link play with first-time touches and clever flicks. As he draws a centre-back toward him, it opens up space in behind. And guess who's making a run into that space? Isak. That's the kind of movement that could cause real problems for any backline. Now of course it's not always going to be the same pattern over and over. Both Ekitike and Isak can alternate when it comes to dropping deeper or making runs into the spaces that open up. It doesn't always have to be a direct link up between the two strikers either. Sometimes it could be something as simple as a layoff back into midfield, where Wirtz or McAllister are waiting in good positions to continue the play. And believe it or not, we can take this even further. We could go even more direct, especially when we're up against teams that press man-to-man across the pitch. Let's take a quick look at something Manchester City did last season to deal with that exact situation. In this example, you can see Newcastle pressing City man-to-man all over the field. If City tried to play short through the middle, they would have been in serious danger of losing the ball and facing a counter in a really dangerous area. But before Ederson even launches the long ball, look closely at the movement between Marmoush and Haaland. It's a clever double movement. Haaland drops deep, pulling his marker with him. At the same time, Marmoush makes a sharp run into the space that just opened up. That's all the invitation Edison needs to play it long. Marmoush gets on the end of it and finishes the move brilliantly. Now think about Ekitike and Isak in that same situation. Both players have the awareness and the physicality to recognize an attack space at speed. Hugo in particular is excellent at timing his runs in behind the backline. And when you combine that with Isak's ability to pin defenders and drag them out of position, you've got a setup that can seriously hurt teams, especially ones that play high and commit bodies forward. Now, if you've been paying close attention to our tactical board, you probably noticed that we included Szoboszlai and Frimpong in the setup. You won't see them in the next tactic we'll talk about, so let us quickly explain why they're in the picture right now. When you're playing a more direct style, there's one thing you absolutely need: intensity. You need quick feet, physical presence, and players who can fight for second balls. Because let's be honest, even if the long ball is a good idea, it's not always going to work out perfectly. You can't win every single aerial duel, and more often than not, that first ball will bounce loose. That's when second balls become everything. This is where Szoboszlai and Frimpong come in. Zobo's positioning in these moments is top class. He always seems to know where the ball will land, and that helps him shut down space quickly and stop the opposition from getting time on the ball. Frimpong, on the other hand, might just have the quickest feet in the entire league, and that's honestly not even an exaggeration. He's relentless, he can close down players in a flash, and when he's pressing from the right side, Konate naturally shifts over and covers that wide area. It's a role he's familiar with, just like he used to do when Trent would push high up the pitch. So that was one option we came up with, but don't worry, we've got a second one as well. This time though, we'll be swapping out Frimpong and Szoboszlai for Bradley and Gravenberch. Let us explain why that change makes sense for this setup. This next approach isn't about going long or hitting direct balls forward. It's about keeping possession, working the ball through the thirds, and sustaining pressure higher up the pitch. In this scenario, we'd have Isak playing as the number 9, Vert sitting in that pocket between the lines as a number 10, and Ekitike operating on the left-hand side. But hold on, we're not saying Hugo becomes a traditional winger out there. Instead, in these kinds of moments, Hugo can drift inside and drop between the lines, helping us overload the midfield and giving our midfielders an extra passing option. This is where his technical quality really shines. He can use those sharp flicks and quick touches to combine with players like Wirtz in tight spaces, opening things up with a bit of creativity. At the same time, Isak would be keeping the opposition centre-backs busy. His movement and presence alone are enough to pin defenders back. And once Hugo links up play, he's got the energy and instinct to make those late runs into the box. With Wirtz pulling the strings and capable of spotting either run, we could end up being a real threat through the middle, fluid, technical, and very hard to contain. Now, with Ekitike starting on the left but drifting inside, you might be wondering, doesn't that leave our left-hand side a bit empty and easy to defend? And yeah, that's a fair question, but that's exactly where Kerkez steps in. Our new left-back will need to be constantly pushing forward, holding the width and staying aggressive out wide. His overlapping runs will keep the opposition pinned back and make sure we're still a threat on that side. To support that, Mac Allister can shift slightly left when we're sustaining pressure, offering cover in case we lose the ball. And of course Van Dijk sits behind as an extra layer of protection, just in case there's a quick transition. Now, why did we bring Bradley and Gravenberch into this setup instead of sticking with Szoboszlai and Frimpong? As much as we rate Szoboszlai and believe his presence is a huge boost, we feel that when Wirtz, Isak and Ekitike are all on the pitch together, we're already loaded with creativity and attacking intent. That makes it more logical to have a natural central midfielder in the mix to give us a bit more control. Gravenberch might not be the guy to dictate the tempo from deep, but he's definitely more comfortable on the ball and better suited to keeping possession under pressure. As for Bradley, he gives us more height and defensive stability on the right-hand side. That could be crucial, especially in the Premier League, where physical battles are constant. Frimpong is lightning quick, But if Kerkez is going to be our main attacking outlet down the left, we need someone a bit more solid on the opposite flank to balance things out. And that's exactly what Bradley brings. Now, of course, if you've watched the 2 videos we made on Isak and Ekitike individually, you already know how much they can improve our presence inside the box. Both players are physically strong and smart enough to read space, position themselves well, and be on the end of crosses. That kind of movement gives us a whole new level of threat in front of goal, which finally brings us to Salah. The Egyptian king is so underrated by the wider football world when it comes to his creativity. People focus on his goals, and fair enough, his numbers speak for themselves. But his ability to create chances is just as important. Now imagine Salah drifting into that right half space with Ekitike and Isak waiting in the box. With their height, strength and movement, Salah's swinging crosses become an absolutely lethal weapon. One well-timed delivery and the ball's in the back of the net. So there you have it. 2 very different ways we could potentially line up with both Isak and Ekitike on the pitch at the same time. One focused on being more direct and the other on keeping possession and building through the thirds. Of course, all of this is just theory and football is never that simple. But with the talent we're bringing in and the flexibility these players offer, there's definitely reason to get excited. Now we want to hear from you. Which setup do you prefer? Do you think Isak and Ekitike can actually work together, or would you rather see one start over the other? And what about players like Wirtz, Soboslai and Frimpong? How would you fit them in? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. We love reading what you guys come up with. It's always fun seeing different perspectives. And don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe if you haven't already. We've got plenty more content coming your way, especially with how wild this transfer window has been. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.